Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of the show to hear how you can get a copy of this program and other helpful documents. And now, it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to KABF in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get all up in your business. For the next hour, via phone and email, I will be, to the best of my ability, answering questions and giving advice to small business owners and to people who dream of owning a small business. You may be asking yourself, what makes this lady qualified to do this? And I'll tell you, experience. So in a minute, you can email or call and ask me anything. My experience is deep and wide, and my advice is free. 40 years ago, with just $400, I started Arkansas Flag and Banner. Since then, it's morphed into simply flagandbanner.com with sales nearing $4 million. That's worth saying again. I started Arkansas Flag and Banner with just $400, and today we have sales nearing $4 million. I started by selling flags door to door, then went to telemarketing, next mail order, and catalog sales, and today we rely heavily on the internet. In addition, over the last 40 years, I've navigated Flag and Banner through 2 recessions and 2 wars. When people find out I'm that woman who owns Arkansas Flag and Banner, they often say, "Oh, I've heard about you," and begin asking me business advice. And I amaze even myself with all the knowledge I've gained. If you call me for advice, you will not be given textbook answers or theory, but you will be given candid advice from my real-world experience. So be prepared for the truth. It's not always easy to hear. For instance, you may not want to hear this. In business, there are very few overnight successes. Starting and owning a business takes persistence, perseverance, and patience. For instance, when I started Arkansas Flag and Banner, I supplemented my income by waitressing, all while I peddled my flags door to door. After 9 years, did you hear me? 9 years of working a part-time job, the company began to grow and solely support me. My first hire was a bookkeeper to handle the clerical side of the business. My first expansion was to begin manufacturing of custom flags, so a sewing department developed. The next decade ushered in Desert Storm War. Flags were scarce, so a screen printing department was hurriedly built to meet the consumer demands. In addition to sales and manufacturing, Flag and Banner now has a purchasing department, a shipping department, technology department, marketing department, call center, and retail store. And I spearheaded the development of every one of these departments. My experience is deep and wide, and my advice is free. Unbelievable! Before we start taking calls, I want to introduce you to the people at the table. We have Tim Bowen, our technician, who'll be taking your calls and pushing the button. Say hi, Tim!
Hi, Tim.
My guest today is Al Hodge from Arkansas Capital Corporation. Al received his BA from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. He continued his education at the University of Oklahoma, studying economic development and financial services. Al has been named Advocate of the Year by both the Louisiana and Arkansas SBA Financial Services, and AY Magazine named him one of the most powerful men in 2015. In addition, Al is passionate about his work with United Cerebral Palsy of Arkansas. And on the walls of Arkansas Capitol in the River Market, he gleefully displays and hosts Second Friday Art Night in support of local artists. Welcome to the table, Al Hodge.
Thank you, Kerry.
Before we get down to the nuts and bolts of business, tell our listeners what Arkansas Capital Corporation Group is and does.
Well, we've been around since 1957. We are a private, nonprofit economic development finance organization. We really do not compete with our local bankers. We do fund loans in partnership with our local bankers, and we primarily do deals that fall outside of conventional bank policy.
That's how I met you.
That's right. That was a long time ago.
I like that unconventional stuff.
Oh, love unconventional.
So I really want to talk about Al the man, but I know, but we're not going to have time, because when I was putting together questions for you, it was like 4 or 5 pages of questions.
Wow.
So I'm going to start with questions that I think the listeners want to hear. And if
Okay.
at the end of the program, if we get to talk about Al the man and what drives you and what motivates you, we'll do that. But your brain is so full of information that all these small business owners and wannabe small business owners need to know. So my first question, is there one thing you see in all entrepreneurs?
One thing in all entrepreneurs, let's see. Yes, I see drive. I see motivation. Sometimes there's a lack of planning, but most of all, I see the drive and the motivation, and that's what I like to see in my entrepreneurs. Are they really willing to sacrifice? Just like you were talking about what you did. You waited on tables for 9 years while you sold your flags door to door. That's what I want to see. People are willing to do anything in order to get their business up and running. That shows true commitment.
So before we go to the next question, I want to tell, because I think people are going to want to ask you a lot of questions, I want to tell people how they can do that. You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on KABF. My guest today is Al Hodge from the Arkansas Capital Corporation Group. If you've got questions or comments for either of us, call
501-433-0088
or you can email questions
at upyourbusiness.org.
and that's questions with an S
That is correct.
if you don't want to call in. So, Al, I'm at the dentist's office yesterday, and we're chit-chatting, making, small talk, and I tell her what I'm doing about my new radio show, and, of course, like always, they say, oh, I've got a question. She says that her husband is a want-to-be entrepreneur.
Great.
I know. He watches everything. He sees everything. He wants to learn all he can learn, but he's not passionate about any one thing. And she says, how does he figure out what to start a business about, and how does he begin? And I know what my answer would be to that, but I want to hear what your answer would be.
Well, my answer is he needs to be looking at a franchise. Franchise businesses in America are some of the best entrepreneurial opportunities you can get into. And if you really don't want to know, if you really don't know what you want to do, but you want to own your own business, you want to work for yourself, be in control of your future, you really need to look at all of the opportunities that are available through franchises.
Wow, I wouldn't have thought that.
That is the best place to start.
And they
really
train
is.
you?
You're trained by the franchisor. I mean, every step of the way is you're helped.
Do they finance it for you, or do they
No.
come to you and you finance it?
Yeah, companies like me and banks and other financing sources will finance franchised opportunities, yes.
So do you deal directly with the person that wants to borrow the money?
Yes.
Because with me, when I first met you, I went through a bank. It was Twin City Bank, I think, at the time.
Correct.
And they sold my loan to you, and that's how I met you.
Well, really how it happened was a lot of times when a bank cannot do what the borrower needs, they will contact us because they know we can probably get it done. And when I say they can't get it done, what you need is it's because of bank policy, because of federal regulations, some reason.
Don't you have those same guidelines?
No, we really don't. We're not governed by the FDIC or the OCC or any other bank regulatory organization. We're really governed by such agencies as the SBA. And as long as we're following the SBA policy, we can do a lot that banks cannot do.
So would you say the SBA is your best partner?
As a lender, I say the SBA is my best partner. As a small business owner, I'd say the SBA is my best opportunity to do what I need to get done.
Interesting. So you like franchises?
I like franchises a lot. There's a great opportunity, and most of them are already proven.
What about a partnership? What if somebody says, well, my friend has a business, and he needs some money and some, capital infused into the business, and I want to buy into his business as a partnership, and we're friends. Have you seen that very many times?
I've seen that a lot of times, and unfortunately, I've seen it break up friendships. I'd be very careful about going into a partnership because even if y'all are good friends going into the partnership, that doesn't mean you're going to remain good friends throughout the time.
So let's say you're not friends and you meet strictly as two people that have the same vision about a business, and you're not particularly friends and you met on a business relationship. Do you do 50-50 in a partnership? Is that how you keep it fair?
It all depends on who's bringing the money to the table. The person with the money is the one that's going to be in control. So, and I see that a lot with small business. Well, with entrepreneurs, they have an idea, but they have no money, and they want to get an investor, but the investor wants the majority of the company, and they're not willing to do that. Well, I'm sorry, if you don't have the money, you're going to have to do what the investor is requiring of you to do if you want to go into business.
So money talks.
It really does.
So the person who puts up the most money obviously owns the most of the business and gets the last say. And can you live with that? So it's a personality
Absolutely.
decision you
That's
have to
exactly
make.
what it is.
Yeah. See, I could never do that.
And that's why I recommend you do that as a last resort.
Okay, let's say that you've decided you're going to start a business and you want to know if you have a good idea. How do you know if you have a good idea? Where do you start?
You need to run it by people like me that are independent and don't have an interest in your business, and just see if it's a good idea. I mean, people like me, we've been doing this for 30 plus years. We've seen almost every kind of business come and go. A lot of people just want to run their plan by me, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll give you my honest opinion.
So you really are saying you start with a business plan.
Correct. You have to start with a business plan.
It's not how I started my business.
I know, and you've been very blessed, Kerry.
I've had a good banker.
No, well, your plan was in your head, and luckily your banker never required you to put it on paper.
Eventually they did. I hope at the end of the show we get to talk about all the denials that I've had from you also. I think they call those unanswered prayers. So is there a current business trend or model that you see emerging right now? I know technology.
Definitely on technology, but services is really big right now. Providing services to many, many different kind of customers and clients.
That's what I would have guessed.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't outsource. Service is one of those things you can't send overseas.
That is correct.
So you have to do it right here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the pitfalls of a service industry? Employees?
Employees are a big issue because your whole reputation is contingent upon that person that's representing you and out there in the public. And also, when you try to borrow money, service companies don't have a lot of fixed assets. So you don't have a lot of collateral. So at times it can be very hard for service-oriented companies to borrow money.
Yes.
And that's where the SBA comes in, because the SBA can help the lender mitigate that collateral risk.
How? How can an SBA not have to have collateral? Because they've got some government backing that says you can take riskier loans?
Well, keep in mind that the SBA is a federal agency, so it does have the backing of the full faith and credit of the United States government. And what it does, it guarantees loans that lenders will make. So there's two types of risk that SBA will mitigate for a lender, and that is term risk, the term of your loan, and also the collateral risk, which means if you don't have enough collateral to collateralize the loan that the borrower needs, it is not necessarily in your best interest to just accept what the bank will approve for you, because and a lot of times that's not enough. So that's when you look to the SBA to guarantee that loan.
I want to ask you what the first thing is you look at when you're starting to read a business plan, so you can stew on that while I tell my listeners how they can call you again. You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on KABF. My guest today is Al Hodge from Arkansas Capital Corporation. If you've got questions or comments for either of us, you can call
501-433-0088.
Or you can email us at
questions@upyourbusiness.org.
So the next thing that I asked you was, what's the first thing you look at when you are starting? When someone comes through your door and they get an appointment with you, do you take everybody's appointment that comes in there?
Yes, pretty much so.
You have to say yes right now.
I usually do. I mean, it's very few times that I have not accepted an appointment.
So what is the first thing you look at when you start reading a business plan?
I
A
look
cover
at-
letter?
No. I go directly to the financial statements.
Which one?
To the income statement, to the projections on the income statement, and I want to see what's going on, what they're projecting on their income and their expenses and their net profit, and then I read the assumptions to see if the assumptions go along with the numbers.
I have people ask me a lot to help them write a business plan, and they seem to think it's a lot harder than it is. It sounds scary, but it's really simple.
Very much so.
So let's just tell people how you write a business plan. First thing you do is decide how much you think you're going to sell, right?
If you're working on your projections, yes. Before you start putting numbers on paper, start putting your assumptions on paper. What is your product going to be? How much can you buy your product or service for? How much you think you can sell your product and service for? So we can collect some revenue numbers and some expense numbers.
So you say, I think, let's just take the one you denied me on the last time, and you can say why.
Which one was that?
So I came to you with the Dreamland Ballroom a few years ago. I was all wound up about renovating the Dreamland Ballroom, and I made all these outlandish assumptions that you blew a hole in. But the very first thing I did was I said, I think I can rent the Dreamland Ballroom every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, 3 nights a week, 52 weeks in the year. And I think that this is how much it will rent for each night based on market research of what other people will rent it for. And I put that down as my number that I had to sell. That was my revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went and got construction costs, and I put down what my construction costs were, and you said, well, that note payment will be this much a month, which was more than I was going to take in income. To renovate it was going to be more expensive, not to mention paying overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started really blowing smoke up your skirt by saying, well, I think I can rent it in the day on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I think I can do Sunday afternoons. And you're like, no, quit trying to make the numbers work. So you've got to try not to make the numbers work. You've got to be honest with yourself.
That is true. And, lenders like me, we already have loans in our portfolio in almost every industry. And I have loans in my portfolio for event centers. So I know how often they rent, what they rent for, what the expenses associated with. And, so it's really kind of hard when somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to rent it every blah, 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 every day. And it's like, no, you're not going to rent it every day.
Because I have experience and know that.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that's different about you from every other person that I've interviewed so far on the show. Is I've interviewed entrepreneurs who have been successful and had their own dream, but you see every entrepreneur. You see every business, every angle, and you're just a wealth of information for people to ask questions. If you'd like to call and ask a question to Al or me on Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, please call
501-433-0088.
So we've put together the income statement. You've put down your assumptions. Then, based on those assumptions, you've created your revenue, your income. Then the next thing you do is your cost of goods.
Correct.
Which that's for only some businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But a service one would not really have that one. So let's go.
Usually.
So, because they don't have to buy anything. That's your cost of goods. So then you would do your income, and then the next would become your operating expenses.
Correct.
Which is your rent, utilities, secretary. How much do you put down for miscellaneous? Do you tell people to put down on there? I always did 10%.
10% is probably a good number, but lenders don't like to see miscellaneous.
Well, that's nice to know. I never knew that.
Miscellaneous is just a catch-all, and it's like, well, what is miscellaneous? And
that's for what I didn't think of.
But how do you know it's only 10%?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. What should it be? What do we miss? How much are they off?
Zero, and everything should be accounted for.
Have you ever had a business plan be perfect?
Oh, perfect. No, there's no such thing as a perfect plan.
Yes. So I always decide there's going to be, well, I'm glad I'm never putting that on another business plan. I'm glad you told me that. You should have told me that 10 years ago. But
it's easy to do your projections if you have your business tax return. You can see all the different accounts that you pay.
But it's a brand new business.
I know.
You don't have a tax return for this business. Yeah, if you're doing projections for an existing business, that's true. You can use the information from the year before. Which brings us to another thing. You don't just do startup businesses.
No, we also do expansions. We do a lot of startups. We really do like startups, but we do a lot of expansions of existing operations.
In fact, you did that for me.
Correct.
You did a real estate for me one time.
Mm-hmm.
You helped me buy the Taborian Hall downtown.
Correct.
And then I did a equipment expenditure.
Correct.
I can't believe you remember that. And
how could I forget you, Kerry? I can't forget
Good
you.
Answer, Al. Good answer, Al. But that's right. So you've reached a point. Do you think it's better to use your own money or to use your lender's money for expansions? I can never decide.
Well, it all depends on the opportunity cost of your money. If you can borrow it at a very reasonable rate with a reasonable repayment terms, and you can make money off of that operation that you're going to be using the money for, then I recommend you try to borrow it. Putting your own money in needs to happen on the front end of the deal where you are actually capitalizing your company. Once your company is adequately capitalized, it would be a rare instance that you would put your own money in at that point. Only if you could not borrow the money would you put your money in.
So I've been in business 40 years, and my new goal is that you told me to do about 5 years ago. You said, Kerry, it's time for you to quit borrowing money because I love to borrow and expand and borrow and expand. It's exciting. It's creative. I like the new part of all of that. I like having that goal. But you said, rein it in. Start saving money and using the money you have to invest back into the business.
Correct.
That's all you have to say about that.
Well, and
I'm listening. Do you see that? I'm listening to you.
It all depends on where you are.
You'd be out of business if everybody did that.
Well, correct. But I mean, I talk to individuals. I'm not going to paint with a broad brush.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in your situation, I thought it was very important for you to.
He means age.
Well, I'm not going to say that.
He meant age. At your age, you need to quit borrowing money.
I did not say that.
There is a point in time where you can only live so many more years. You've got to stop. You can't pay the note back, I think is what he's trying to say.
No. Oh, no. Absolutely not. But, I mean, there's a time when you want to start thinking about, well, what am I going to do to exit this company? I mean,
right.
You have worked all of your life, Kerry, on this business. Now, the next strategy you need to work on is your exit strategy. How am I going to produce income by selling this business so I can go do something else? Something that you're great at.
Like the radio show?
Like the radio show.
There you go. Just another arm of the same thing. This is my mentoring show. I hope people are learning something from it. So is it hard to say no to a client?
Absolutely.
Really? You're really doing unanswered prayers, though. I mean, you declining me was one of the best things that ever happened.
Well, thank you for saying that. A lot of people will not agree with that. They just think that, we're just bankers are all the same, but we're not. A lot of times the best thing that can happen to you is the answer is no. Mm-hmm. It's the best thing.
Is there a more predominant age group that speaks to your original statement about entrepreneurs being ambitious and...
Oh, absolutely not. It's all across the ages. What I'm seeing a lot of is as the economy changes, a lot of people in their 40s and 50s are losing their jobs to all kinds of different reasons. But they have very large 401ks. And they need to realize that they can actually take that 401k and use it without penalty or interest to inject into their own business.
Yes.
And we're seeing a lot of that.
So that's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 100, you can borrow 50% up to $50,000. So if you have $100,000 in your 401k, you can borrow $50,000 of it, and you have 5 years to pay it back.
Well, again, those rules are governed by your 401k that you have in place.
Oh.
I'm not going to talk about an individual 401k.
Oh, okay.
But what I am going to say is it is allowable through IRS to have a direct contribution out of your 401k into your own C corporation.
Yes. And it has to be a C corp.
And it has to be a C corp, and that is a qualified investment on behalf of your, like investing into a mutual fund. You can do that with your own C corp.
Again, speaking to people who are entrepreneurs that want to start off, and this may be across the board too, do you think it's better? For me, I was young and naive. If I'd have known what I know today, I might have been more scared. But do you think it's better to be young and naive, or do you think it's better to be older and wiser?
I think at any age. I like young and naive because they will plow through it just like you did. You didn't know better. You knew what you wanted. You plowed through it. Mm-hmm. When you're older and wiser, you normally have some wherewithal behind you, so you can make different decisions than being younger. You might have some money in investments. You might have money in retirement accounts or something that you can use to get started. It may be easier on you. So it doesn't matter if you're old and wise or...
And when you're young, you don't have so many, like me, I didn't have any children, so I didn't have any responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And so, I could live on a shoestring a lot better. It wasn't as scary. So what gets you up in the morning every day, Al? You've been doing this for 20 years or more.
30 plus.
Oh,
yep.
Really? You need to update your website. I read about it. I thought it said, really, that long?
Well, it's been 20 years at Arkansas Capital.
Oh, I gotcha. That's what it said at Arkansas Capital. Boy, you have a great website. If anybody wants to go there, what is the web address?
It's arcapital.com.
It is a wealth of information, and I can tell y'all are on there all the time updating it. I saw where cerebral palsy. I saw where you posted yesterday $35,000.
Yeah, Arkansas Capital is very interested in helping charitable events, and one of the events that we work on annually is the Once Upon a Time charity event for UCP of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Another event that we work on is the Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Oh, I love that organization.
Which is next week. Their dinner is next week, so on the 13th, I think it is.
That's a wonderful organization. When did that organization start?
I'd only be lying.
It seems like it's really old.
Yes, it is an old organization. It started out as Big Brothers, and then they consolidated with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah, it's a great group. Talk about your Donald W. Reynolds Governor Cup Award. I always go to that event.
Oh, thank you for supporting it. You've always been a big supporter of it.
I love it.
It's a wonderful event. It's a business plan competition. It's been around since 2000. First, we just started doing it in the state of Arkansas, and then the Reynolds Foundation, the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation, got involved and started contributing to it, and then asked us to expand the competition to Oklahoma and Nevada. So today, the competition, they have a single competition in each one of the states on business plans for all four-year colleges and above.
So you have to be, RJ was on here.
And yes, RJ participated in the first or second one.
Yeah,
early. Yeah.
And we were thinking you have to be a college graduate. And it's
college graduate? No, in college.
You have to be in college.
Either undergraduate or graduate.
And your college has to be participating?
Yes, but all colleges do participate.
I thought last year that there were some other states involved and that it was expanding.
Well, once we have the Arkansas competition, then we do take the winners from Arkansas, and we take the winners from Oklahoma, and we take the winners from Nevada, and we compete among the three states.
Nevada? Why Nevada?
Well,
you just like to go out there and gamble or something?
No,
I don't know.
It's driven by the Reynolds Foundation. The Reynolds Foundation only operates in three states, and that is Arkansas, Nevada, and Oklahoma. So that's why that is, by the foundation.
So we talked about using borrowed money versus saving money a little bit. And I want to come back to that because I want to know how you know how much you got to borrow. Hold on. You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on KABF. My guest today is Al Hodge from Arkansas Capital Corporation Group. If you've got questions or comment for either of us, call
501-433-0088.
Or you can email your questions too.
Questions@upyourbusiness.org.
So Al, how do you know how much money to borrow when you come in there? You've done your income statement. You've gotten to the end.
Well, if it's on a startup business, I'm going to ask you, well, how much money are you bringing to the table? If the answer is zero, well, then my answer is pretty quick too, that you can borrow zero amount of money.
That's what drives me crazy about bankers. When you need money, they won't give you any. If you say, if I had money, I wouldn't be here.
Well, in the first place, Kerry, I don't give money. I lend money.
Good. But they don't have to have money. They could have collateral. That's what I always had. I never had any money.
They have to have something at risk, money, collateral, something at risk. Now, keep in mind, there's a difference between a startup business where you've never been in operations before and a business where you've been in business for several years. If you're in business for several years and have a good capital base within your business, and
what does capital base mean?
An equity position, retained earnings, paid-in capital, that sort of thing. You could probably get 100% financing on a lot of different items. But if you're a startup, you're starting out with a zero equity base, so you have got to capitalize your company in order for a lender to be interested in lending you money.
You got to have a dog in the fight.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
And a good number, the numbers are all over the board, but I'd say, if you have 25% of what you need in personal cash that you can capitalize your company with, I think that's a very good start.
So, do you have a great track record for lending money? I guess you do, or you wouldn't still be there for 20 years. So if you decide to lend somebody money, they can feel pretty good about themselves because you are betting on winners 90% of the time?
Well, yes.
99% of the time?
Our success rate is very, very high, so we're very, very proud of that. Yeah, and, we are doing higher risk credits because we are doing loans that are really outside of bank policy, so it is inherently higher risk. But our success record is very, very nice.
Well, when I started Arkansas Flag and Banner, I didn't even know what an income statement was, and I didn't know what a balance sheet was, and I still don't know what a cash flow statement is. I still don't figure that out.
Well, it's how your cash flows through your company.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So I did notice this, though, speaking of cash flow. There are lots of people that live on cash flow.
Correct. Cash flow's good.
Cash flow's good. Cash is king, as I learned. But there are companies that live on cash flow. They're really not making very much money. They're living on cash flow. And I noticed that when we had 9/11 happen and all the big box stores folded within 3 months. There were so many businesses that couldn't last more than 3 months when we had that downturn in the economy and people quit buying. So to me, I just thought they were living on cash flow too much. They didn't have enough money in the bank. What do you think about that?
Well, keep in mind that cash flow should be your money in the bank. Keep in mind, cash is king. So when you sell a product and you generate a receivable and that receivable is collected, that cash goes into your operating account. So that's how the cash is flowing through your company. What I get worried about is when I see people, small business owners, that have a very healthy net income, but they have no cash.
They're taking it all out.
Well, that's one thing that could happen. Or the other thing is it could all be wrapped up in receivables and inventory. Your cash can be wrapped up in receivables and inventory. If you're having difficulty collecting your receivables, that's a very devastating thing. If it's taking you beyond 30 days to collect your receivable, it's taking you 45, 60, 90 days to collect a receivable, that is very dangerous. Even though you're making a net profit, your profitability is all tied up in inventory and receivables.
That is such great advice.
So that's why you have to stay on top of your receivables all the time. You have to make sure you're collecting and also make sure that you're not buying too much inventory, that you're not carrying. Keep in mind your cash is in that inventory.
Yes, and you pay taxes on that.
Not only that, it's your lifeblood. If you have too much, if your inventory gets old and stale and it just doesn't turn enough, you're wasting your cash.
So we like for Arkansas Flag and Banner's inventory to turn every 3 months. Of course it doesn't, but that's our goal. And when it gets to be a year old, it is slashed. We try to identify it and slash it in pricing and move it.
But that's what you need to do. You need to get rid of inventory like that. Just get rid of it.
And when I first started this business, our accounts receivables were astronomical because everything was invoiced on net 30. And then we went to net 10. And now everybody pays with credit cards up front. The internet has completely changed the way our cash flow goes through the business because we get a credit card at the minute that they close out the shopping cart. Now, you do pay for that credit card.
Correct. And sometimes that can be steep.
But I think it's not as expensive as holding an accounts receivable for 6 weeks.
I would tend to agree with you on that one, yes.
That's a hard sell. People are like, why is that costing you money? It's only been there for 6 weeks. They don't understand that you pay. I don't even really know why it's costing me money. Maybe because I pay interest on loans that I could be paying down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that, and the interest is higher than the fee for a credit card. I mean, your loan interest may be 7%. Your credit card fee may be only 3%. So you got a 4% swing there. So I'd rather get the credit card in, save 4%.
Well, that's not exactly how it works, but it's a lot better for you to get as long as you can afford to take that 3% hit on the credit card, as long as it's built into your margins, it is a lot better for you to collect that through a credit card and go ahead and pay the fee. You just got to make sure that your margins are high enough for that.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on KABF. My guest today is Al Hodge from Arkansas Capital Corporation. If you've got questions or comments for either of us, call
501-433-0088.
Or you can email us at
questions@upyourbusiness.org.
So what is your favorite? This may get you in trouble.
Be careful, Kerry.
He likes it. What is your favorite lend you've ever done? Your most successful?
Of course, yours, Kerry.
Good answer,
Oh,
Al.
my gosh. It's Arkansas Flag and Banner.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, really, what's your most successful?
Oh, well.
You've done a lot, and this may be.
I've done a lot, and, for privacy reasons, we don't talk about it. I mean,
okay.
I'm willing to talk about you because you're sitting here, and you can tell me
But
to
that
shut
makes
up at any
sense.
time.
That makes sense.
But I really wouldn't want to talk
That's right.
about. But I will say that, a lot of times restaurants are very, very hard to finance. Bankers really don't like restaurants. We have a successful history of financing restaurants, both franchise restaurants and mom and pop owned restaurants. So, I mean, that's one thing that we take very seriously is particular industries that we have seen a lot of success in.
I loved your suggestion for people that are listening that may have missed the beginning of the show. If you want to be a small business owner and you can't figure out exactly where your passion lies, or life hasn't led you down a path like it did me, then franchises are an excellent opportunity.
Absolutely.
And
they're not all just in the food businesses. They have franchises for every industry imaginable.
I mean, if you could sell candy bouquets.
Correct. Candy bouquets.
Who would have thought? So business is creative. It's a lot more creative than I think people think.
It is.
People often say to me, you're so creative. And I say, no, I'm not. I'm not creative at all. But then when I think about it, I guess I am, because business is a creative outlet. You're building stuff, you're growing things,
But, Kerry, you've also surrounded yourself with a bunch of creative people.
I do like creative people.
I mean, it's not only what you're capable of doing, it's being able to delegate enough responsibility to others that are capable of doing as much or better than you. Know where your weaknesses are and hire those people that cover your weaknesses.
I don't know how you can look at an income statement and really tell who's going to be good and who's not going to be good, because so much of it is about the person's personality and their drive, and then there's the timing of the country and what happens economically in the country. So you're lucky to do so good and be so good to make so many good lends. But in addition to loaning money, you are a great networker.
I try to be. Networking is something that's becoming more and more important on a daily basis. So we really do have to get out there, be part of the community, and, make sure people know who you are and what you do. That's why I always wear my name tag. People say, Al's always got that name. Do you mow the yard with your name tag on, Al? It's like, that's the cheapest form of advertising, is having a name tag.
Well, isn't that smart?
A name tag and a business card. It's like a walking billboard.
And I never have either one.
I know. Everybody should have a name tag on. I always have mine on.
Is it magnetic?
It's magnetic.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Oh, baby, yeah.
That's
I don't use those pins anymore.
So you, in the networking area, you do venture capital.
We do have a venture capital arm to Arkansas Capital Corporation. That's Diamond State Ventures, yes.
How do you decide? Is there something that triggers your brain when you say, this is a business that a venture capitalist might be interested in?
Well, number one, our venture capital entity that we have, we only do second stages and beyond investments. So we're looking for companies that are already established, have a track record, and are looking to go to the next level. That's where we like to be. Now, there are venture capitalists and angel investors that do startup companies, but we're not that one. We're second stage. As long as we're looking at a company that has a great management team in place and a good history of what they've done, and they just need the money to make that next step, it's a pretty easy call at that point.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy on KABF. My guest today is Al Hodge from Arkansas Capital Corporation Group. If you've got questions or comments for either of us, call
501-433-0088
or send an email to questions
at upyourbusiness.org.
And that's questions with an S. So, Al, I don't know if everybody knows how lending works.
It's simple.
Is it really?
It's the second oldest business in the world.
Oh, I know what the first one is.
That's a different show, Kerry.
So, we talked a little bit about cash flow, which I don't understand. We described to our listeners the income statement. I have to do this sometimes for my employees because I just feel like part of being a small business owner is about mentoring to your employees, not just about covering your food in the microwave and putting your dish in the dishwasher and getting to work on time and wearing nice clothes and deodorant and combing your hair, but it's also about how business works. So every Monday morning at 7 o'clock, we have a meeting with everybody in my company. We get together, and I try to tell them something that I've learned that week or that month. And one day I realized that none of my employees knew the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet.
That's interesting.
And I don't think I knew. And my accountant, God love him, he was just so patient with me for so long, teaching me income statements and balance sheets and C corporations and S corporations and all of that stuff. And can you tell them what a balance sheet is?
Well, look at it this way. A balance sheet is a photograph of something on a particular day. A balance sheet is on a day. And it photographs your assets, your liabilities, and your net worth. So on that particular day, you may have cash in your checking account.
That's an asset.
That's an asset, cash of $3,000. You may have receivables of $4,000. That's another
an asset.
You may have inventories of $4,000.
Another asset.
Another asset. And then you might have some other current assets. In addition to that, other assets you might have are known as fixed assets, which would be real estate, machinery and equipment, automobiles, computers, those kind of things. That's all fixed assets. And then after that, you may have another asset that is intangible. You may have some goodwill or something.
Flagandbanner.com is an intangible asset.
It's an intangible. The name itself has value. Mm-hmm. So those are your assets. And you total those assets up, and all those assets have a value. Then you look at your liabilities, the things that you owe. You may have payables from your vendors. You buy on a daily basis. You don't pay cash. They invoice you. Those are payables. That is a liability. You may have a line of credit at the bank. That is a liability. You may have a mortgage on your building. Your mortgage will have two components in your liabilities. It will have a long-term portion, and it will have a current portion. The current goes in the current portion of your liabilities, and the long-term goes into the long-term portion of your liabilities. So you have your assets, then you have your liabilities. You're subtracting your liabilities from your assets, and hopefully there's a positive number there.
What's that number called?
Well, it's the net worth of your company.
It's your net worth.
It's your net worth. And net worth is made up of retained earnings, and hopefully your business...
Retained earnings are what came over from the year before?
Come over from previous years, from all the years before. Hopefully that's a positive number if your company has been profitable. If it has not been profitable and you've had losses, that number could show negatively, which in the banking world is not what you want to see. So if you take your current assets, you subtract if you take your assets and you subtract your liabilities and you come out with a net worth, hopefully your net worth is positive, and that on that particular day, that's what a balance sheet is.
Your balance sheet has nothing to do with your daily expenses of rent,
Correct.
utilities,
That's all on the income statement.
payroll, cost of goods. And I think it was very hard for me to really separate those two things. So when they come to you to borrow money, you want an income statement.
And a balance sheet.
You want a balance sheet too?
And a balance sheet and a cash flow statement. I want all three.
Well, I'm hiring somebody for that cash flow statement.
So, you have your balance sheet, which is a photograph of your assets, your liability, and your net worth on a particular day. It's one particular day. You have your income statement, which covers a period of time. Your income statement covers if your fiscal year starts on January 1st of each year and ends on December 31st. Your income statement will start on January 1st, and what month you're in, you'll stop at that month. Let's say you're stopping at the end of May. Your income statement will cover those 5 months, but your balance sheet just covers one day. So you see the difference between those two?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then what happens on your cash flow statement is it's the relationship between the balance sheet and the income statement.
You're going to have to teach me that. Really, you are going to have to teach me that.
Well, it's,
I have never really spent the time to figure out what that one does. I never look at that one. So how often do you think an existing business should look at their income statement and balance sheet? I know how much I look at mine. I know my ratio.
Every month. Every month when you close out the month, you need to be looking at your balance sheet and your income statement and the cash flow of the company every month.
Every month. And there's specific ratios you can run that
Correct.
I was probably in business for a long time before I realized that these bankers have these set of ratios that they run. And there's quick assets and
Current ratio, the quick ratio, the days receivable. How many days do you have in receivables? That's what you need to know.
That's a big one.
Because if your receivables are lengthening out, if you're supposed to have 30 days in receivables and you're seeing it's 45, it's 60, it's 90, you have a problem. Why are you not collecting?
And the longer it goes, the less likely it is that you're going to collect.
Correct.
I'm lucky that people that buy flags are pretty good people. Most of them, I know. It's not like, I don't know, some things like I'm not renting furniture. I bet those people have a hard time collecting money for that. So we've described an income statement. We've described a balance sheet. We've described how often you should look at your ratios. And I do want to tell this one ratio that I think everybody should do every month, that I do every month. And that is where you divide your payables into your assets.
Okay.
And what's that one called?
Payables into your assets. No, that I don't.
So your payables go into your current assets. So it's your money and your receivables, which are your current assets, and I take what my current payables are and I divide it in there. And that ratio, if it ever gets 1-to-1, I need to borrow money. If I always keep,
That's interesting.
It is got a name to it. I think you taught it to me.
I don't think I taught you that one.
But that's the one I really, really like that I look at all the time, because I always want I never want to get below 3-to-1. I always want my current assets to be 3 times that of my payables. And if they ever get 1-to-1, you need to borrow money. And another thing, we're about to run out of time, but what?
Borrow money, not necessarily borrow money. You need to pay your vendors, something's happening if your payables are equivalent to what your receivables and your inventory is, there is an issue there.
Not inventory, just my receivables and cash.
Receivables and cash.
It's because my sales have gone down.
Okay.
So my sales have gone down, and I'm starting to know that, and I'm starting to go, and I'm starting to ride my vendors, and my payables are getting higher, and my receivables and cash are getting lower. And if you wait, and this is something I really think the listeners need to hear, if you wait till you are needing the money.
Oh, it's too late.
It's too late. I didn't know that. You have to be forecasting monthly, and you have to know if you're going to need the money. And then you go to the banker and say, or your bank, and you say, I need a line of credit against my inventory.
Or your receivables.
And to help me through this hard time that's coming up. But if you wait till it's already...
You can't borrow money for this Friday's payroll, so to speak. I mean, you've got to be
Okay,
more...
I won't.
You got to be more progressive than that. You've got to be
do.
ready. You got to know that you're going to need that.
And I think that your banker likes to see that you are being proactive and that you're looking at your stuff. But a lot of times I made this mistake when I was young, and I waited till I was already in trouble because I didn't look at my income statements.
Correct.
No.
People wait too long. You're exactly right.
So let's talk about exiting your business.
Mm-hmm.
You like that.
Well, I think
You're
all
good at
of
that.
us, I think we need to have an exit strategy for everything that we do. I mean,
You picked out your funeral song yet?
Oh, I've known that for a long time.
Oh,
it's called
talk
Simply
about-
the Best by Tina Turner.
Oh, I love that. I can't even think of anything to say to that. That's so good. I thought you were going to be serious, but maybe you are. I don't know.
am serious. I mean, Tina's my gal.
I thought it was the Pointer Sisters
Oh, those two. I'll take the Pointer Sisters, too.
or Toto.
Oh, I'm a big Toto
See,
fan.
this is how well I know him. I know the music genre he likes. So, exiting your business. I don't want to, every time you say that to me, I say, I'm never exiting my business. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you will exit one day.
Well,
The good Lord's going to take you. You will exit your business. Now,
So-
will you do it before or after? I mean, it's up to you.
I will be sitting in that office with a blank stare on my face till the day I die, probably.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I mean, there's other things that you can do. I mean, you've been great at what you've done. And,
My radio show and the Dreamland Ballroom.
and the Dreamland Ballroom.
Which you came to last year, thank you, and you couldn't believe how good the fundraiser
I came
was.
to the last two. They're fabulous.
They are really, really good. We have one fundraiser a year. It's November the 18th at Dancing into Dreamland, where we feature the dancers that I love dance, and we feature dancers, local dancers. They never get enough notoriety, I don't think. And there's amateurs and professionals. And it's the only fundraiser we have a year for Dreamland Ballroom. And our goal is to get an elevator, because you wouldn't loan me the money for one. And and we need heat and air, because you wouldn't loan me the money for that either. Thank you for that, actually. And we've got I don't know if you know this, but the Dreamland Ballroom, I know we're running out of time. I can't believe no one called in and asked you questions. I think you're intimidating.
Oh, I hope not. But I do want to tell everybody about the Dreamland Ballroom. That is a wonderful facility, and every year I love the event Dancing into Dreamland. It's a great event, Kerry, that you put on, and I love it.
It's good feeling. It's good people.
Oh, it's fabulous.
You know, I just don't want to be around anybody that's not open to embracing and loving all people, because
I
it
agree.
takes everything. So today, I could talk to you forever. You've got to come back.
Well, I can't believe it's been an hour already.
I know, isn't it fun? I love this show. You have to come back, because I think you've really, really got everything we said today needs to be almost said again.
Well, we need to bring some bankers in here with us, and I'll be part of it, and we'll have a banker in here as well, and we'll talk about the difference between government guaranteed lending and traditional bank financing.
That'll put everybody right to sleep.
Oh no, it won't! It's exciting. It's exciting.
So I know that I'm surprised, actually, that you haven't ever birthed a business. As many businesses as you see. Actually, you birthed 1 million businesses.
Yeah.
So because of that, you get a cigar
Oh
for
my
having
gosh.
birthed. That came from Colonial Fine Wines and Spirits. They have a big humidor room out there. I'm going to have to get them to start giving
And
me
it's a
money for
Romeo
adver-
and Juliet. You paid a little bit of money for this.
It's pretty too, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
And I
I'm
smoked one.
gonna smoke it tonight on my deck with a nice scotch.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I love that. All right, let's close the show with my guest next week. I'm going to be out of town next week. So my guest next week is RJ. He was my very first guest. He's going to be the host, and he's bringing a surprise guest. So tune in next Friday. He's so much fun. He's done so much. And then after that, French Hill, Delta Bank and Trust. He is our congressman, and he is in town. It was kind of hard to get with his scheduler, but we figured it out. He's in town on October the 21st, be French Hill, and he's funny. Gosh, he's a funny
He's
guy.
a great man.
He's a funny man, too. And then, and we're not going to talk too much politics. We're going to talk about,
Talk to him
business.
about banking.
There you go. More exciting stuff. And then after that is Paula Dempsey from Dempsey Bakery, gluten-free.
Great.
She also had a film production agency.
Mm-hmm.
She's a long-time entrepreneur. And then in November, we've got more, and I think we're out of time. So I hope that our listeners have learned something today that will help them up their business. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next Friday at 2 p.m. on KABF Radio in Little Rock, Arkansas. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. Want to hear today's program again or want someone else to benefit? Jot this down. It will be available for download within 24 hours on upyourbusiness.org or at flagandbanner.com. There you'll find links and other helpful resources to help you live the American dream.